Welcome everyone to another episode of the Terrain Studio. I'm your host, Sean Morris. Today on the studio update I have for you just a couple items I've been working on, some insight into the future plans, and some comments about progress and things general to the studio, I guess. First and foremost, I suppose I should let you guys know I did a little cleanup in the studio here, so we're rocking once again with a nice clean workspace. There we go, it gives me a little more room and things like that so I can space out, and every once in a while I like to have a little reset so I can get kind of onto a new section of the project. Still waiting on my airbrush paint, so they're going to fill that section over there, and everything else is pretty much full up. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the project itself, but before I do, maybe I'll give you guys just a little view of what I've been working on today and last night. So last night, this update, I showed you that I had done the trees. I did up the white rebasing, and then I also did the dark earth pumice paste on there. So what I've gone ahead and done is laid the trees into the sections. So if you remember previously, those were large sections of the dark earth. So what I've gone in and done is laid in the trees, and then I've used a flex paste to kind of fill in spaces, so you can kind of create a little bit of a forest area, but while still kind of defining the edge of the area. So that's going to be the area terrain on the table, but again tying in the snow and sort of bringing it all together. So I really think that they look a lot more like they belong, as opposed to sort of standoffish area terrain pieces, much like the fields kind of look like right now. So the next step is obviously going in, starting to blend the edges, putting a little snow build up in the centers of the field, and then when I blanket that with snow, that'll kind of tie in this area, because I don't want all of the crop row exposed. Again, I want it to be sort of an area terrain that's slightly defined, but at the same time not standing out too much. So what I did is I just gone ahead and spaced the trees around. Obviously this is area terrain here, here, and there, and then these are just more for aesthetics. They could be blocking line of sight or create some concealment if the players so choose. But the important thing to note on here is when you go in, and here you can really see the buildup that I've been doing with the snow is, so what I did is, let me focus that for you guys. I've gone in and blended the flex paste up with the tree bases here, and then what I'll do is, just as that dries a little bit, I'll go in and cut that with a knife to define that edge. Then when I pull that up, it should create a nice little void area. Not so much on the snow here, but certainly on the dark forest areas, you will see that that area well defined. Again, just the same thing over here. So I've just gone ahead and sort of blended that right up into the tree bases, and then obviously when I lay the snow in, that'll kind of make that a little more gradual, and you'll kind of get the idea that I was going for there. I do have to come in and do all the road edges. I decided that I'm going to build up the excuse me. I'm going to build up the road edges to kind of create that little bit of an embankment. I think it'll help me to blend the snow onto the road a little easier. I'm not going to build it too high, so I'm going to be careful not to make that embankment too high, but I want to darken. Oh, sorry, I want to obscure the edges of the roads a little bit. I think they're a little too sharp and defined right now. So, and then certainly I'm going to go in and do some build-ups in the center, and then obviously I have to do the ice on there as well. The ice will probably actually be the first step in that whole process. So obviously, as you can see, there's a lot of trees both there and on the lower portion. So that took a good chunk of my time. And then going in and obviously blending in the trees. The blending hasn't been done on this lower section. It's got a little hard to work on the floor. But one thing I noticed too, and I hadn't seen previously, I forgot to actually include any rocks on this half of the board. So I'm going to go in and put a couple stands of rocks just kind of in and around these build-up areas here, just to kind of create a little more uniformity between the two halves of the board. Obviously I got a little bit left on the fence here and one building, and then that sort of takes care of the buildings and structure over here. As I said, I'm going to do the flex paste on the fields, and then that should pretty much finish up everything minus the roads. and then I'm hoping to be done this half. Down here I have the roads to obscure. I have one section of area terrain way up there, and that's pretty much done. And then I obviously just had to blend in these few trees. There's fewer trees on this half of the table than there is on the upper portion. Obviously less area terrain, so but certainly more buildings here. So each half has its own sort of features and predominant areas. So a few things left to go. Obviously buildings are the most important over here, and that's kind of why I cleared this area off, because working with the buildings, I really want to make sure I'm not getting any dirt or debris in with the houses, so that's important. So probably for a little break today, as I can't really move anything over here, I'll probably work on a few more houses, just get that done and up to where it needs to be. So there's the finished houses over there, and obviously I got one over there that needs to be done. Talking a little bit about the project itself, let me just see here. Obviously you guys are becoming more and more familiar with the project itself. This is the orchard here that I really haven't done much work on. This pond area I obviously have moved up into this portion. It just didn't work right here. It was a little too tight, and there was no way to create a cavity to have the road raised and the pond lowered, so obviously that's why I've moved that up there. Everything else is kind of status quo. Obviously the one piece of area terrain here, 2, 3, and then one up in the corner right there. You guys have all seen that. Cemetery's over there, obviously, and we even have all these roads, these bendy sections, and it's pretty close to this exact model. So does have some open patches here and there. They will be somewhat open. Probably won't go quite as open as this, just because it'll be pretty much a blank tile and not very interesting, but in and amongst all this area, I've scattered a few trees, because obviously it's hard to do them exactly as placed here, but I put them where I thought they'd be very useful and kind of looked natural. So, and then here's what I'm talking about with the crop rows. I'm not going to lay in any crops, because I think it's maybe a little unrealistic to have this much growth and then still have snowfall over it, but I'm not exactly sure what these are supposed to signify. Maybe they are corn rows